Topic: Training. Subtopics: Factors influencing the training. Methods of identifying training needs. Characteristics of an effective training. What are the determining factors that make training effective? Training is an important part of preparing new employees for their roles and positions within the company, and also helping existing employees stay current on the latest information about the company. For a training program to be effective, it needs to have a purpose and then implement the right training methods. By understanding the factors affecting training and development effectiveness, you can either change your current training programs or develop them to meet the needs of your employees and your business. Here are some factors influencing the effectiveness of training programs. First, the purpose of the program. Of all the factors that affect work, the purpose is the greatest factor that will influence how the training program will be planned and executed. For you to be able to develop the right kind of training program, you'll have to understand exactly what kind of knowledge and skills you want to impart to your employees. The training scope will also determine whether it will be possible to hold the training internally, or you'll have to contract a third-party consultant or institution to hold the training on your behalf. Second, the resources available to your company. The resources you have at your behest will determine the exact type and extent of your training program. Your budget, for example, will determine the type of training you'll be able to afford. You might not be able to send all of your employees to a local college for training, but you might be able to call a few professors over for a series of training workshops. The space you have available in your workplace will also affect what is possible. You need a large enough space to train your employees. If you have limited space, you might have to do it in smaller groups. You will also need training materials to make your training program strong. Third, the audience of the training program. The kind of audience that attends your training sessions also affects how you to develop the program. Some courses are made for all of your staff, while others are suitable only for a small section of it. You, therefore, need to have an understanding of the kind of background knowledge you need to develop a training session that is appropriate to the specific audience you're dealing with. You should know about any prior knowledge the participants of the training session have and build from there. Fourth, the training staff involved. The staff members in charge of the training program are also important to the effectiveness of the training program. Trainers who are educated and experienced in teaching professionals will conduct far better training sessions than those without that experience. You also want your trainers to understand the goals and values of the company and have enthusiasm for training your employees. How can quality training lead to job satisfaction? Employees who receive quality training will be better able to carry out their tasks on the job. They will also be able to constantly improve their skills and grow beyond their positions. The feeling of growth, as opposed to decline, is what leads to job satisfaction and lower employee turnover. You, therefore, cannot skimp on effective training for your employees. What is the process of training and development? There are plenty of new techniques coming up every day that companies can use to implement the training and development of employees. However, some have survived through the decades and proven to be very effective. Any good training and development program will integrate several of these features in any combination. When blended together, these techniques make for an effective training program. First, company orientations. This is the most common kind of training method and helps ensure that new employees are successful in your company. Whether you carry out the training through some kind of handbook, a one-on-one meeting, or a lecture, the information you convey to the employees should contain the company's strategic and historic positions. The main people in authority in the company should also be mentioned, along with the structure of the company, as well as the specific departments. Employees should also be educated on exactly how their departments contribute to company objectives and help it accomplish its mission. The employee should also be educated about the rules and regulations of the company as well as its employment policies. Second, training lectures. Lectures are very useful when you need to get the same information to a large number of people at the same time. You don't have to carry out individual meetings with the employees, so that makes the lecture very cost-effective. There are, however, some disadvantages to the lecture as a method of training employees. Since a lecture only works one way, with one person addressing the crowd, it may not be very interesting, making it less effective for training. It really depends on the oratory skills of the person delivering the lecture. If you're not good at grabbing and holding the attention of people for extended periods of time, then the attention of the crowd will soon shift. Another drawback is that the lecturer won't have an easy way of figuring out if the attendees have understood the message. Third, case studies. This method of training is non-directed. Basically, employees are given some practical reports of cases to analyze to learn the main points they need as part of their training. The case report will consist of an exhaustive description of some real-life situation employees may encounter. They should then analyze the problems presented as part of the case study and figure out possible solutions to them. They are typically encouraged to be independent in their thinking and even think outside of the box when possible. The employees should not rely on the direction of the instructor to perform their analysis of the case study. The main advantage that comes with the case study is that real-life stories are used. There is no better source of problems to analyze and come up with solutions. The employees gain practical experience in dealing with on-the-job problems. They don't have to deal with abstract theories that they might have a hard time practically applying to the job. Fourth, role-playing. This training method asks people to take on various roles and play out those roles in a team. The facilitator of the training session will come up with a scenario that is to be acted out by the employees. The scenario is usually deeply rooted in practicality, and the interpersonal relations that are simulated are quite genuine. The participants receive feedback immediately from both the facilitator of the training session and the scenario they are carrying out itself. They will, therefore, have a much better understanding of their own behavior as well as that of others. This method is quite cost-effective and is often employed in management training and marketing training. Fifth, simulations. The main difference between simulation training and role-playing is that role-playing is a subset of the simulation method. Basically, simulations are structured games and competitions that model the real world and seek to emulate scenarios that could plausibly occur in real life. The benefit of such methods is improvement of various employee skills, including problem-solving, understanding, decision-making, and the ability to perceive and respond to actual problems. They are also exciting enough to both capture and hold people's interest. Sixth, computer-based training. Computer-based training programs are focused on developing a structure for the learning process. Instructional materials are provided via computer to the new hires, and they can complete it by themselves while bosses or trainers facilitate the process. The main benefit of this kind of program is that employees have the luxury to learn at their own pace and can learn at the times most convenient to them. The primary use of this method is in learning about operational equipment, computer hardware, and computer software. Computer-based training is particularly important when it comes to learning about operational equipment, because the employee gets a simulated experience of operating the equipment without having to risk either damage to the equipment or injury. The operational equipment also doesn't have to face any downtime because it's simulated. A particularly popular kind of computer-based training is web-based training, wherein people complete their training online, where there are additional resources. The company doesn't have to develop its own training materials but can use relevant materials that are already available online. Since more and more organizations have high-speed internet available, web-based training is becoming a lot more common. 9th. Audio-visual training methods. These training methods include videotapes, film and television. They are similar to simulations and role-playing games in the sense that they also give employees access to real-world scenarios and are cost-effective. The main disadvantage of this kind of training is that it's very hard to customize this kind of training for a given audience. Also, the audience doesn't get to participate in the training by asking questions during the presentation. 8th. Team building. This kind of training method involves the creation of effective teams with the same goals as the business or particular department within the company. It's not quite the same as the kind of ad hoc and informal use of teams in the workplace. Team building is a well-structured and formal process and is usually facilitated by some third party, typically a consultant. It is usually done to solve the issue of poor dynamics within groups and teams, manage relations between employees and management, and also to improve productivity and quality of work. Characteristics of effective training programs. However, not all training is created equal. The extent to which training can influence learning, behavior change, performance, and profitability depends largely on how it has been designed and delivered. The following features have been directly associated with improved employee and organizational outcomes. First, start with the training needs assessment. This is a systematic process to determine who needs to be trained. For example, who needs improved KSAs, what they need training on, for example, what tasks need to be improved, and how the training process will be supported and aligned with strategic objectives. Second, identify and communicate purpose, objectives, and outcome. These are identified based on the results of the training needs assessment and must be communicated to trainees in a clear and easy-to-understand way. When communication includes a message on how the training will be applied and what the expected outcomes are, motivation to learn increases. Third, relevant content. Be effective training must include content that is directly linked to trainee job experiences. Noah Colquitt, 2002. This makes intuitive sense, but when ignored it can reduce the impact of training on performance to zero. Just think about the training sessions you've attended that have been unrelated to your daily work life. Fourth, active demonstration. Trainers need to actively demonstrate the specific skills and processes included in the training. Conducting these live demonstrations provides trainees with a model of desired behavior and results in greater learning and transfer of training, regardless of the topic. For example, if the training is on interpersonal communications, the trainer might demonstrate active listening skills through a role play with a willing participant. For an engine repair class, The trainer might bring an engine and demonstrate how to bore out the cylinders. Fifth, opportunities for practice. Effective training programs include multiple opportunities for trainees to practice the skills they've learned during class time. By building application exercises into the training workshops themselves, you provide trainees with a safe place to try new skills where they can make mistakes and not worry about consequences. 6. Regular feedback during training. Trainers also need to give feedback to employees while they are practicing their new skills. Feedback should be given both during practice and after exercises have been completed. It should also be directly related to how the trainee performed a task and never be focused on personal characteristics. For example, bad feedback might be "you are being such a klutz," whereas better feedback would be "I noticed you dropped the lever a few times because your grip is incorrect. Let me show you." 7. Post-training environment. After training, it is important that employees are given opportunities to perform the skills they've learned. If the post-training environment does not support this, research has shown that training will have little to no impact on trainee performance and organizational utility, that is, little or no.